diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in America. Civil rights organizations are now suing the Trump administration, alleging that 3 of his executive orders to end DEI programs are unconstitutional and, quote, falsely assert that diversity programs are illegal and inconsistent with merit and hard work. They say this puts them at the risk of losing federal funding, which is used to help their communities. By the way, the Trump administration has called DEI programs dangerous, demeaning, immoral. They say they violate civil rights laws. But a survey from 2023 found that more than half of people think focusing on DEI in the workplace is a good thing. And nearly 60% say it's somewhat or extremely important to them to work in a place that is diverse. So, what is at stake? And frankly, where do we go from here? For answers, we're joined by Marc Morial, the president and CEO of the National Urban League, which filed this lawsuit. It is the nation's largest historic civil rights and urban advocacy organization. Marc, good morning. Always good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. Good to be with you. And good morning, Adrienne. Was that Adrienne?
It's Jerika today.
It's Jerika today, Marc.
Jerika, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. How are you?
And hey, good morning. You guys are looking good.
Thank you.
So, Marc, let's talk about this decision to file this lawsuit against the Trump administration. Tell me about that.
So, the details of the lawsuit and the lawsuit speak for itself, and I don't want to go into the details of the lawsuit. But what I will say is, since 1910, the National Urban League has stood for equal economic opportunity, pathways for all people to jobs in government, in the private sector, in broadcasting organizations and universities. And we've worked assiduously towards that goal. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the American Magna Carta, laid out that racial discrimination is illegal, period. But it also encouraged steps, programs, initiatives, ways to ensure that women and African Americans and Latinos and others would have meaningful access to the American dream. These executive orders stand in the face of that fundamental American value. And I think the numbers you shared show that overwhelming numbers of the American people support this broad value proposition that America's workplaces should look like America, that everyone should have an opportunity not only for the entry-level job, but to move up. And that isn't fundamentally what's at stake. What concerns me is the twisting of logic to suggest that initiatives to end discrimination are discriminatory in effect. That's not only wrong, it's a lie, it's trying to trick the American people into believing that it's something that is good and that something we need is not good.
Marc, I know you've heard this before, but what is your response to the people within the Trump administration and frankly, those who don't necessarily agree with diversity and inclusion in this way that you're talking about, who say we really need to go back to sort of restoring a merit-based system, that it should solely be based on, you know, your grades or your outcome or, you know, your ability to do the job? Help people understand how the two can coexist.
What DE&I says is give everybody who has merit a chance. Merit is a code word that has been used to support excluding people. DE&I and merit go together hand in hand, like mustard on a hot dog, like red beans and rice. The fundamental idea is give everyone with merit a chance. What some of these folks want is they don't want to give everyone a chance. They want an America of the 1950s, when most Americans were excluded. The suggestion that only a certain American has merit. So we've got to challenge that logic head on. We all believe in merit. You have merit, Vlad has merit, I have merit for the jobs that we hold. But 50 years ago, we would not have had an opportunity before the Civil Rights Act to get our resumes read, to get our qualifications considered. This is what is at stake. The twisted logic being used reminds me of 1970, reminds me of 1950. It's a same old argument, washed and rinsed and repeated, and the American people should not be fooled. We want everyone with merit to have a chance, and we want a nation that invests in building everyone's abilities and qualifications.
Mark, let me ask you, one of the things that I think sometimes gets lost in the translation is that people associate DEI with just black and brown communities without realizing that this also covers disabled people, this covers veterans, this covers white women, LGBTQ plus people, families who need IVF. So the question is, what does the United States of America look like in 5 or 10 years if the president's policies and actions are implemented?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Vlad, because some of the biggest beneficiaries of, quote, equal economic opportunity programs and DE&I programs have been white women. There are more than 30 who are CEOs of major corporations. 25 years ago, it was 2 or 3. The disabled community, LGBTQ community, if you talk about all the communities who are, quote unquote, considered DE&I, that's a majority of the American people. And that is what is so crucial about this, is that the loud voices against this are not representing the majority thinking of the American people.
And Mark,
every poll, every survey shows.
If I could really quickly talk to us about how this impacts your organizations and others, and how much you rely on the federal government to do the work that you're doing within your organization.
We partner with the federal government, with foundations, with the private sector to bring quality programs to help people, African Americans and other socially economically disadvantaged, get jobs, become home buyers, build businesses and the like. To the extent that any of these actions stop that, they are affecting our very mission, our very essence, and I think our right and our ability and our mission to do our work. So we, have been, I think, one of the best when it comes to job training and workforce development, helping people become home buyers. We, have partnered with every administration, Republican or Democrat, going back now 60 years. So we want to continue that work, and we think that work is good for the country.
Mark, this is a monumental lawsuit that you're filing. We'll keep track of it. Thank you very much for coming on and speaking with us about it.
We appreciate the time this morning.